Today we're going to talk about the Republican attack that anyone who doesn't agree with their politics are now suddenly pedophiles and groomers, and I interview Senator Amy Klobuchar about her bill to finally deliver some relief for supply chains and ocean shipping, her response to Republicans who are quick to complain about high prices but won't vote for any measure to lower costs, and her thoughts on Clarence Thomas recusing himself on matters involving January 6th. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're listening to No Lie. Okay, so this is episode 100 of my weekly video podcast, and I know that's just like an arbitrary milestone, but I don't know, it's pretty cool to think back 100 episodes ago. I would literally DM random members of Congress on Twitter to beg for interviews. I'm still definitely begging for interviews, but now I beg over email. Anyway, for those of you who've watched from the beginning, and those of you who are new and only recently watching now, thank you, honestly, for giving me a little bit of time each week. Please know that I'm really grateful that you're watching this show. Okay, so jumping in here, during Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation hearing, now Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, after a 53-47 vote, Republicans had floated this idea that she's soft on child sex offenders because of sentences that she passed down that were perfectly mainstream and also in line with other judges who Republicans voted to confirm. So clearly just a desperate Hail Mary to try and sink her confirmation. Didn't work, she got confirmed. But a few Republicans have decided that this was actually an effective attack, and so they started railing against anyone who supported Ketanji Brown Jackson as being pro-pedophile. And then you look over at Florida, where Florida Republicans passed the Don't Say Gay bill into law, and then Disney spoke out against it, belatedly, I should add. Now Republicans are calling Disney groomers. Disney. And so these Republicans have just decided that anyone who doesn't agree with their agenda, their politics, is now a pedophile, which sounds ridiculous, right? It sounds so batshit crazy that I'm actually pretty sure it'll stick. Why? Because if you'd asked anyone 10 years ago what they would say if you told them that the host of The Apprentice would become president and stage a coup when he lost re-election, I'm pretty sure they would say that you're out of your mind. And so by now, I've learned my lesson, and when something seems too horrific for these Republicans to latch onto, guess what? They're probably going to. And so on this idea that the left is all just pedophiles and groomers for the crime of not agreeing with Republicans' backwards anti-LGBT bills or supporting liberal Supreme Court nominees, two things here. One, I think it's incumbent on all of us to breathlessly reject the idea that anything LGBT related can be equated to pedophilia. Like, being gay or pro-LGBT doesn't mean that you are grooming kids to be gay. What an insane, baseless suggestion that homophobes desperately rely on to justify their bigotry. Gay people don't turn straight kids gay by exposing them to LGBT culture or ideas, just like gay kids don't turn straight when they watch The Notebook or Sleepless in Seattle. What it does is eliminate the stigma that comes with pretending that LGBT Americans don't exist. And for those kids who already have higher rates of depression and higher suicide rates, eliminating those stigmas can mean the difference between life or death. But the people who are reintroducing those stigmas by equating LGBT Americans with pedophiles will undoubtedly have blood on their hands. Undoubtedly. But second of all, and I know this is just going to knock you off your feet, but if the Republican Party was actually concerned about kids' safety, you might think they'd be concerned about someone like Matt Gaetz, who is currently under investigation for child sex trafficking. People like Roy Moore, who Ted Cruz promised to support if he'd been elected to serve in the Senate from Alabama, despite the fact that he molested God knows how many underage girls. People like Jim Jordan, who allegedly turned a blind eye to hundreds of student athletes getting molested and raped at Ohio State University by a team doctor while he was the coach. People like RNC strategist and Trump re-election campaign strategist Ruben Verastegui, who was arrested as part of a federal child sexual exploitation investigation and just sentenced to 12 years in prison. Or former Kentucky judge and Trump delegate Tim Nolan, who was charged with multiple human trafficking offenses and paid minors for sex. Or Republican state senator and Trump's Oklahoma campaign chair Ralph Shorty, who was convicted of child sex trafficking. Or Ben Gibson, a 2020 Republican congressional candidate from Louisiana who got arrested on 4 counts of pornography involving juveniles under the age of 13. Or Trump Commerce Department official Adam Hagman, who's accused of sharing a child pornography video and commenting multiple times on sexually abusing children. I mean, just this past week, Tennessee Republicans introduced a bill establishing common law marriage between one man and one woman that eliminated the age requirement for marriage. So not only attack on same-sex marriage, but literally legalizing child marriage. There was so much backlash that they had to finally offer an amendment raising the age to 18, but dear God, that is a pretty devastating showing from a political party that is currently crying pedophilia against everyone else. Now, that's not to say that there aren't absolute creeps on both ends of the political spectrum, but let's not pretend that Republicans aren't really well represented on that list. So maybe, just maybe, we start treating these accusations as the projection that they seem to be. So look, I know it can feel like we're in a political environment where nothing matters, but if one thing is true, it's that pushing back against these smears with the truth is going to make it really difficult for Republicans to keep calling everyone else pedophiles. Because I can promise you, the last thing they want to be reminded of is that their hands aren't in the least bit clean here. So listen to my interview with Amy Klobuchar, where we talk about her bill to finally deliver some relief for ocean shipping, her response to Republicans who are quick to complain about high prices but won't vote for any measures to lower costs, and her thoughts on Clarence Thomas recusing himself on matters involving January 6th. Click the thumbnail right here on this screen, or check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel.